In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said, "Love your friends like your own soul. Protect them like the pupil of your eye." "You were always a good friend to me," said Scrooge to Marley. "Thank ye." This is a talk about A Christmas Carol. NDE, you and me, and malignant narcissism. Have you ever read it or seen it on film? It's the book that matters the most. It's there that the language is more highly developed, full of metaphor, simile, symbols, with a plot and a theme of love and immortality, creating an allegory of hidden meaning. Dickens uses, for example, the warmth of the season, etc., as a small sort of example of what he did. My daughter just called and I had to hang up on her. Sorry, Lex. Ebenezer Scrooge has a near-death experience, or something like a near-death experience, definitely a near-God experience. And Dickens describes it so well that it makes me wonder if Charles Dickens had one too. It's my favorite book, A Christmas Carol. I read it every year for decades. I started right after my near-death experience, when I discovered within its pages a story just like mine. The style of the book alone is worth the read. Jacob Marley never said, "Love your friends like your own soul, protect them like the pupil of your eye." But even in chains, even in the chains he forged in life, that's what he did. So forewarnings about pending death, those are pretty common. Visitations by familiarities, as Dickens calls them, come to give us warning. You are dying, my friend. You are dying, my love. Pay attention. Here's our question for the day. The demons of greed and indifference to humanity, selfishness, malignant narcissism, greed, infect Ebenezer Scrooge. Who else do we know like that? Who else can be saved? That's the question. Who can be saved? Everyone. If not in life, then in death, as I was. I'm going to read a little here, and then I'm going to talk about what I find. So here I'm going to grab my copy, and I'm going to open to a page, and I'm going to read to you The Nature of Scrooge. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red and his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows, and his wiry chin. He carried his own low temperature, always about him. He iced his office in the dog days, and didn't thaw 1 degree at Christmas. Even blind man's dogs appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master." Turning the page, a few pages. So Scrooge sees the door knocker and he enters his house and he goes up the stairs. And Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive hearse going on before him up the stairs in the gloom. Precursors to dying. People see them. People see sometimes visitations of familiars and other objects before they die. Scrooge saw them. There's a summary of Scrooge right here. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. A couple more pages. And here's Jacob. Oh, and here he is describing the problem. "Oh, captive, bound, and double-ironed," cried the phantom, "not to know that ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is susceptible is all developed." You have to die, pass into eternity to see the good that's here that could be developed. You have to die to yourself and touch eternity to see the good that is here and all that can be developed. Not to know that any Christian, it says, but I'm going to substitute the word God. Not to know that any God spirit working kindly in this little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short. Life is too short for its vast means of usefulness. We run out of time before we run out of usefulness to each other. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunity missed. No space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunities missed. But I do think that he's wrong about that. Because I was saved and redeemed in death and not before. "Business," cried the ghost, wringing its hands. "Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence, all God words of love, were my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop." Business, the dealings of his trade, were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. And here's what it is to live a moral, soulful life. It is at this time of year, start again. "At this time of the rolling year," the spectre said, "I suffer most. Why did I walk through crowds of fellow beings with my eyes turned down and never raise them to the blessed star that led the wise man to the poor abode? Were there no poor homes to which this light would have conducted me?" So overhead right now, Jupiter and Saturn are in conjunction. Let them function for you and for us and for all of us as pointers to the light, to cast our eyes upon those who are less fortunate than us and live lives of benevolence, charity, kindness, love, and giving. You know, my own near-God experience, I've been calling it near-death experience, but that's not really true. It's a near-God experience. In my own near-God experience, there was salvation for me and redemption. And this is what happens to Scrooge. He has encounters with the ghosts, and I'm sure you know the story. And I love the first ghost that comes at Christmas because he has a jet of light projecting from his head and a cap in his hand that extinguishes the light, and that Scrooge's own actions wove the cap to extinguish the light. By will of action, we dull our own light. And Scrooge went through a life review with this ghost who was always shifting in form, 20 legs, 2 legs, 1 leg, no head, torso, 1 arm, always shifting. Both and he went through his life review in a compressed time way, which is certainly a near-death experience sort of thing. Instead of 3 nights, 1 night. And even before that ghost arrives, time does this crazy thing in the book. The clock hits, he goes to bed at 2, but then the clock hits 8, and then it hits 9, and it hits 10, and it hits 11, and it hits 12, all in a sequence within seconds. Time itself is disrupted in the book. Why am I telling you this morning? I'm telling you this morning because A, I think Dickens had a near-death experience. B, he describes it not only in A Christmas Carol. He runs the theme of immortality and love throughout his books. And I tell you this morning to say that no one is irredeemable. No one is beyond the light. Last week, I talked about a certain fellow who holds much power and the death grip he has upon the nation. And here's the thing. Even he's redeemable. Because at his core, like Ebenezer Scrooge, he holds inside his heart a jet of goodness, of light itself, of which he is made, of which we all are made. In this story, A Christmas Carol, it is the allegory of our own lives. And it's the story that reflects near-death experiencers all over the world. We have life reviews. For me, I saw the world as it was while I was dead, like the second ghost in the story. And for me, I saw some of the future of my own life. Possibilities, things that could have been, not things that will be, asks Scrooge of the ghost. And then at the end, having seen himself for who he is, through the eyes of love, of benevolence, he is redeemed and saved in life. He's redeemed and saved in life. This book is worth the read, not just the movie watching, but worth the read. It's short, it's a novella. And in it, if you're interested in near-death experience, you will see it there. And you'll see a master writer weave into it all the way through it, tastes and touches and points of love and light and benevolence. He even calls old Fezziwig from his toes to his organ of benevolence, he says of Fezziwig, the organ of benevolence. Dickens was a genius, okay? But he talks like a near-death experiencer. Was he in 1843 when he wrote the book? I don't know. I know that many years later, it might have been 1853, there was a terrible train wreck in England, and he was aboard the train, and somewhere like 43 people died. And he became more famous, not for his writing, but for his actions of compassion that day, treating the 100 wounded. Actions of compassion. That's what Ebenezer Scrooge found to be his salvation. The seeing of the other as oneself, the seeing of the light inside the less fortunate. Who is saved? Who is beyond redemption? Not a single soul is lost to the love above. Not a single soul is not made of goodness. We have the will choice, though. When I was dead, it was self-evident that I was in the presence of God. And as I went through my life review, it was self-evident that I was guilty and caused all the pain that I had caused. But it was also the will to give me the chance, the will of God to give me the chance to turn my face toward the light, which I did. But not so much out of my own action, but out of the will itself, merely giving up and giving in and finding wholeness there that I've carried into my life. A part of it, a partial wholeness. Ebenezer Scrooge gave up his will. He saw himself for who he was and gave up his will. That's all it takes in life or in death. So, my friends, thanks for listening. My hope, my calling, my job, my reason for living is as a fire tender, one among millions, tossing fuel on the flame cast upon the earth by the pre-existent Christ until it blazes like a Yule log in every heart. Charles Dickens stoked the flames. Will you stoke the flames this Christmas season and through the year? The story of Ebenezer Scrooge is salvation by conversion to the hard truth of seeing through heaven's eyes. Business? Humankind was my business. Even the worst kind of human being who has caused so much suffering on large scales can find redemption after death if they do the single thing, release their will to God, allow the love to flood them, allow the light to live inside them. It is an act of will. It is a choice. Choose every day the same thing. Light, choose the light, choose the light. Unchain yourselves. When a malignant narcissist holds the most powerful office in the world, you can be sure that he loves his chains and clings to them more than to our humanity. But those chains are not permanent, not on him, not on anyone. All they need to do in life or in death at the threshold of heaven is turn to look upon the light itself and the love and be freed from the fetters, the double fetters, and the wandering of the earth, to suffer every day, seeing those who need help and finding yourself unable to give it. That was the suffering of Jacob Marley and all those like him in the story, unable to help when that's the thing they wanted most. So I'm going to ask you all this evening, no matter where you are in the world, as the sun goes down about 30 minutes after, to look for Saturn and Jupiter, our Christmas star, our solstice connection. They're aligning in, for us, from our point of view, in conjunction on the solstice. Take a look if you can, if you haven't. I've been watching. It's such a strange sight in the sky. It looks like it points something. Pardon me. It looks like it points at something. It looks like it has a direction to it. Now, I know it's astronomical, but it's such a strange sight in the sky this year. It just makes me wonder about it. and talk about it to your friends. So finally, if you like this video, if it has any meaning toward you, if it warms your heart a little bit or gives you something to think about, give it a thumbs up, please. And please subscribe. And if you want to hear more from me, please subscribe and help. I work for God. And I want to thank you, everyone, for your support this past week. After what I said last week, I appreciate your being here. And if this video brings warmth to your heart, and if you want to hear more from me next week, when we dig deeper into the Gospel of Thomas and touch upon the mythical Christmas narratives, take a visit to peterpanagore.love and maybe drop a little bit in the hat. I do counseling. I'm available for that too. And you can find links there, and you can find the link to Mystic Tea Salon at the same location, peterpanagore.love. No doctrine, no dogma, no theology, just mysticism. And I think we're going to stay with the Gospel of Thomas for a few weeks to explore the mystical words inside of Jesus's words. And finally, I want to show you this. This particular copy is the original manuscript edition, Christmas Carol, a Christmas Carol. And here we have, look at that. Those are the copies of the pages that Dickens wrote. And notice all the crossouts. Notice all the mistakes and edits and corrections. We're like that. And so was Ebenezer Scrooge. It's okay to have divine correction. It's okay. We're all like that. He started with this, and he ended with a masterpiece of Ebenezer Scrooge's heart. And the same is true for you as it is for me. So I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to thank Patricia and Capital One for your gifts this morning. And I'm going to get rid of the teleprompter here. Ta-da. Set that aside a little bit. And I may take a little break here just for half a second before we begin to chat to see if there's something pressing with my daughter. We'll see in a minute. Let's try it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's take that try. Oh, it was my granddaughter. I'll talk to her later. Hi, everybody. So, I'm taking off these things, and I'm dressed for Christmas time. And I'm going to take a peek over here and see what's going on. Starting at the bottom, shivers, Peter, of warmth. You have a gift. Thank you, Kristen. Your talk today felt like a Christmas gift. You lifted Christmas Carol into a meaningful... I'm going to pull this closer so I can read it. There we go. I guess I'm going to need these, huh? All right. I'm starting at the bottom here. You lifted Christmas Carol into a meaningful story which was never apparent in the many, many films I've seen. Yeah, the films don't capture it. The language, the beauty of the language of Charles Dickens in the structure woven into the story is where the fullest meaning is found. Yeah, the book is always better than the movie. That's just the case, right? Thank you, Olga. I'm going to swing way back up to the top here and start skimming down and see what we have here for questions or comments. Amen. All across the universe, even those who don't know God's love can send love. Good morning to everybody. Hey, Russell over there, and Lee, and Valerie from Montana. Hey, Valerie, where are you in Montana? I used to live in Bozeman. Hi from Vermont, Primary Feathers, Vienna, Olga. Merry Christmas, Rob. Hello from Ireland. Dr. Rohit Gore over there in India. Sue, thank you. Awesome. A favorite. Yeah, Christmas Carol. What a book. Wow, even the dogs saw Scrooge's darkness. It does not come across in the movies. Really, seriously, it's a super skinny book. And you know what? I have a copy here to give away. And I couldn't quite figure out how I would figure out giving it away to somebody here this morning. If somebody has a suggestion on how I can give this book to somebody who hasn't read it, who would love to read it, let me know. And if you pay for Shipping, I'll send it to you. I just got it yesterday. It's originally priced at $30 Canadian, $22 American, United States, and it's one of the greatest books ever written. Let me know. Give me your thoughts on that. I couldn't quite figure out how to do it myself. After a near-death experience, even someone who has become quite a conservative Christian believes there is salvation worked out in death. Ian McCormick, he says Willie T. I hope to live all my salvation and redemption, a.k.a. life review on earth before I get my near-God experience. Yeah, that's the ideal, don't you think? I think that's the ideal. Thank you for the gift you just gave. Thanks. So true, no one is beyond redemption and salvation. Nobody. It's all an act of will. And the pressure of the light itself in death, that's what turned to my head. Sure, I had carried love with me, all the love I gave away and all the love that was given to me, but it was the presence of the benevolence of God in mercy for me, his beloved, her beloved, non-gendered God's love, its love. The isness is love for me, for all of us, is what turned to my head. And then I found my salvation and my redemption in the acceptance of the love itself, the divine fire of purgative love, as you've heard me say before. Everyone, peace to you all from all over the world. I'm looking for questions or comments. This person, okay, too many clouds here in Michigan. Where can I go from your spirit, says Willie T. Or where can I fly from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. Yeah, that's one of those, oh my gosh, it's in the Bible kind of mystical things that we talk about. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. There it is again. Mysticism in the Bible. Thank you. Thank you for putting that there. Yeah, you have to go back and see what I said last week even. The Gospel of Thomas. Yeah, looking forward to it. Excellent. Hey, thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Clarissa, for your gifts this morning. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you for stoking my fire, says Ali. Ali, you're welcome. Peter, do you think that donating to charities is considered as important in life reviews, or are more person-to-person acts of kindness more important? I don't think there's a difference, because charity in 1 Corinthians 13 in the King James Version is also translated as love. The word love in most translations, rather, in the King James Version is translated as charity. Charity is love, and it doesn't matter where or how you give it. It is love given. Person to person, well, there's more personal there, of course. But if you give to, some fund somewhere that helps some people somewhere on the planet, Oxfam, for instance, yeah, it doesn't matter where you give it. Selflessness is selflessness. You remember that scene at the beginning of Ebenezer Scrooge's story here, when those gentlemen come and they ask for benevolences, and he talks about the prisons and the poorhouse and the treadmill and the darkness of his heart. And then at the end, he whispers to them, and they get shocked by the amount of benevolence he is willing to give, with many years of that he should have been giving, also given in accumulation that year. Redemption is possible. It's really totally possible. And I want to point out that Ebenezer Scrooge didn't see Jesus, because God came to him in ways that he needed to see God. That's where his conversion happened. That's where it happened. Dogs are extremely perceptive. Yes, they are. Submit a favorite quote from the book in the comments after the live chat. Submit our names. Here's the solution. Wendy, thank you. Why don't you submit your favorite quotes from the book in the comments after this is over, and I'll put them in a hat, and I'll choose, and I'll have my granddaughter, I'll have Cece choose one. That's a great idea, Wendy. And then I don't know how we'll get in touch with you. How will I get in touch with you all? You'll have to. Hmm, 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 hmm. We'll figure that part out. We'll figure out how to get in touch. But that's a great idea. That's what we'll do. Good idea, Wendy. Christian mysticism via scripture and NDEs is Great Falls, Virginia. Hey, Phil. Primary feathers. I've always found it amazing that the treadmill was invented as a punishment device. Yeah, I wonder if the treadmill actually was a mill. So you walk upon this treadmill and you grind the wheat or the corn. And it wasn't a punishment. I mean, maybe it was a punishment, but here in the story, it's a way to earn a living when you're desperately poor. The worst thing that it's your worst. If you can still walk, you can earn a few farthings or shillings or whatever it was by walking on the treadmill. Or maybe it was punishment and they weren't earning anything and it was a way of funding their prison sentence. Maybe I should look that up because I don't know. Let's see. Research the charity. Some give more directly to the cause, some more to administration. Yeah, that's totally true. I've always found it amazing that the treadmill. Oh, yeah, I just read that. If one is giving just to win favor with God, well, then that's selfish. I suppose all philanthropy and all giving is at some level selfish. Probably. But if you're just doing it to win favor with God, well, then it probably doesn't work so well. But it still works because, last week, Mackenzie Bezos, I'm not sure of her last name, gave away $4.2 billion. Was she trying to curry favor with God? I don't know. But did she? Probably. A lot of that money came right here to my little state. And probably went to lots of other places too. Whether or not she intended it to be buying her way into heaven doesn't really matter because she helps so many people. Did she do it out of selfishness? I don't think so. But a lot of people give out of selfishness because they want to look good in the community. And that's okay if they're helping people. I don't mind it when places like our YMCA has the name of a very generous woman. She paid for the field house. It's named after her, Mary Louise Cowan. She was a saint and she wanted her name on it. So why not? No harm done. Was it selfish to have her name on it? Some might say so, but I don't. If you were speaking with a French accent, everyone would still understand you, and I'll have a much easier time understanding you. You mean I should be speaking with a French accent? I can fake one, but I don't think you want to hear that. He makes the sun rise on the evil and the good. Yeah, this is another Bible quote. He sends the rain upon the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? That is beautiful mysticism. In the Bible, NDE. Mysticism in the Bible. If a person has never read the book, they can't just submit their favorite quote. Unless you've seen the movie. We'll accept movie quotes too. But that's a good point. Also, have a fave lesson from today. Oh yeah, well, all right. We'll expand it to the favorite lesson from today too. That sounds good. That's a good idea. Forgiveness ought to be a condition of our heart, is God's heart, and thus is totally in keeping with the spirit of all creation. Forgiveness is love, just like charity is love, just like benevolence is love. All of those things are love, and so much more. Bah, humbug, said Scrooge. And then there was this point at which he almost said, as Jacob Marley was floating out the window, he closed the window after all the other specters had faded. He said, oh, and couldn't say, bah, humbug. Hey, I want to read you something about familiars. I forgot to read this. So at the back of this book, it has like a thesaurus kind of dictionary thing. When Dickens talk about familiars. Familiars, noun. Familiars means spirits or devils who come to someone when they are called. But also I think about a familiar might be someone you're familiar with who comes to visit you to give you a warning or to come to collect you, to bring you home to heaven. What right do you have to be merry? What reason do you have to be merry? You're poor enough. I love that quote. Here's a fascinating quote from Bonhoeffer that I used. Bonhoeffer, for those of you who don't know, was arrested by the Nazis and imprisoned for standing up to Hitler, and was also involved in a bombing plot. I think it was a bombing plot. It was an assassination plot against Hitler. A Christian pastor. From Bonhoeffer. I don't see the quote, though. God in the manger. I don't see the quote. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all year. That's a good one, too. Who among us will celebrate Christmas correctly? Whoever finally lays down all power, all honor, all reputation, all vanity, all arrogance, all individualism beside the manger. Oh, that's from Bonhoeffer. That's quite the quote. I always watched A Christmas Carol for Christmas because it was one of my favorite movies. But after reading and listening to NDEs, I will definitely see much more. Yeah, there's a lot in that book. There's definitely a ton in that book. I'm checking the time here. It's 10:38. I wear the chain I forged in life. Former English teacher here. Dickens always writes about redemption and often sacrifice. He was reputedly awful to his wife, another deeply flawed person who was used by God. Yeah, it's never clear and clean, is it? He was awful to his wife, and yet, wow, God's always picking the flawed people. Oh, just to let you know, I am super flawed, and I'm not like putting that out as a bragging point. It's just a reality. Ask anyone who knows me. Whoever remains lowly and lets God alone be high, whoever looks at the child in the manger and sees the glory of God precisely in his lowliness, and that is the wonder of wonders, that God loves the low. Yeah, did you know that the Bible takes a preferential option for the poor and the widow and the lowly? It ain't about the rich folks. It's about God loving everybody, but loving the poor in particular. All right, my friends. God is near to the lowliness. He loves the lost, the neglected, the unseemly, the excluded, the weak, and the broken. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. All right, my friends. It's kind of a low Sunday here. We got 60 folks. We've had as many as 90. I might have ticked off a few people last week. Oh, well. Sometimes you have to speak the truth, even if it loses your friends. So, my friends, thanks for coming this morning. Remember, in 20 minutes, we're going to have Mystic Tea Salon, and there's no need to run this longer than it needs to be. Pick up your copy of Christmas Carol. I'll go through the chat, and I'll take names, and I'll put them in a hat. And if you want to put something in the comments after, I'd appreciate that as well. Your favorite quote from the movie or what you learned today, and I'll put them in a hat, and my granddaughter will pick. This is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is a air sign, 0 degree Aquarius. A grand mutation from Earth to air happens once in 800 years. We're living in historic times, and a major shift in human consciousness, says Jim Z. Yeah, it's the way it seems. Sure does. Quality, not quantity. Truth, not pleasing. People pleasing. Thank you, and namaste to you all. And I'm gonna close with the last paragraph of the book, okay, and then we'll do a little prayer. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever after. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. God bless us, everyone. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it. Are these the shadows of things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only? Yeah. The future is fuzzy. All right. Let's spend a little moment here in centering. Make me a channel of your peace. Let your will be mine. Let me see your light in the eyes of humanity, in the hearts of my neighbors, and those I like and those I dislike. Let me see your light in everyone. Give me the strength, give us the strength to stand up when we need to, and the backbone to say what needs to be said. But with compassion and love, humility, and your presence, guide us this season. May we learn from you, and you be our teacher. Amen. I'll put your name in the hat, Patricia. PM me for the address. Not to read this manuscript. Great message. You're welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming today. Like the video if you haven't already. Appreciate it. Subscribe. Thanks for your gifts this morning. They keep me going. I appreciate it. If you want to come to Mystic Tea Salon, you're quite welcome. We're going to meet in about 15 minutes. The link is at peterpanagore.love under programs, and just use your Zoom and zoom right in. All right, my friends, I will see you after Christmas, where we begin to look at the Gospel of Thomas and all the incredible things that Jesus said there, or should I say credible things he said there. You're welcome, everyone. Peace and love. Namaste, everybody. Make yourself a channel of peace. Amen. See ya.